Yo, 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 guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Marijuana SA Weekly. Welcome to 2022. Woo! First episode of the year. I think we came at you every Friday, the entirety of 2021, and we shall probably be doing it again this year. And we're going to start off the year with a interesting one with Stefan. He's got some, he also maybe known as Attorney 420. He's got some interesting things to announce. And it is his birthday, so in the comments, just leave a little happy birthday message. But yeah, he's an attorney. He was at Schindler's, and he's got some exciting info about a new venture with regards to cannabis laws, and we're just going to discuss a little bit on what everyone wants to see for cannabis this year. It's been quite an interesting few developments, but it's going to be I've got high hopes for 2022. And you, Dean, high hopes or what?
Yeah, it sounds rolls off the tongue nicely. So let's hope we see some movement over the course of the year. That there is things happening constantly. I just think it's the government who's sort of dragging their feet. Stefan's agree as well. But yeah, I have high hopes for the year. We're going to come at you every Friday again. So there's high hopes for that too. We made it happen for 3 years, I think. So we can push it or 2.5. We can push it for a third. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this year and to bring more content. And I'm also really looking forward to this conversation we're going to be having today.
Brilliant. Let's bring in Stefan now. Hey, Stefan. Thanks so much for joining us today. I did tell everyone it's your birthday.
Andrew, good to see you, Dean. Thanks again for having me. Thanks for putting me on the spot like that. Now everyone knows what a workaholic I am.
We were gonna sing for you, but we decided to take too much time away from the content. We might lose some viewers. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, we spared them a little bit. But thanks so much for coming on and giving some info. We're quite excited to hear a little bit about what your thoughts are of 2022 for the cannabis space. But first, I believe you have a bit of an announcement with something that's happening on Monday.
Yeah, I'm excited to announce that on Monday I'll be launching my own law firm. It's called SJF Attorneys. Thank you. And the reason it's not something super cannabis related, there's a section 15 of the Legal Practice Act that says you've got to practice under your own name or, under an existing name of a previous partner. We've obviously got a whole little set of rules in the legal fraternity. So Stephanus Johannes Frederik is my initials, and therefore SJF Attorney sounded a bit easier than anything like the Zaid note or any of that. But yeah, it's been a few months now in the making, and it's been a long and difficult process, but I'm glad to announce that we're finally here. The main reason being, obviously, I wanted to do a lot more in the cannabis space, for which sometimes you need authority, which sometimes takes delay, especially now with COVID, everything being virtual. And I want to be in a position where if a client phones me and says they're in jail and they need help, I want to be able to make the call and say, listen, this person needs help. I know I'm able to assist them. No question about it. It's a yes for me. So it will still obviously do normal attorney stuff. If you've got a casual divorce, debt collections, litigation, but when it comes to specializing in a field of law, SJF attorney will only be specializing in cannabis law. And will attempt at being South Africa's first and only full-on dedicated law firm to only cannabis law, with only the normal law on the side there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So it's going to cover everything from street arrests, possession busts, right up to, as in your background behind you, facilities, licensing, and more, right?
When it comes to
and grow clubs.
Yeah, it's basically been broken down now for us into the three models. You can say you've got your medicinal route, which is expensive yet obviously legitimate because you are growing medicine. Then you've got your bit more commercial routes, which is now the cannabis arrests and private use. And then the only really commercial model available when it comes to anything else in the regulatory space is either your CBD, but when it comes to THC, it's only your grow clubs that you can currently do. Although I do see a trend in Section 21 licenses.
Yeah.
I know the topic of this podcast for you was my hopes for 2022. And let's start off with our hope South Africa can register cannabis as a registered medicine in 2022 so that we can actually, start getting it locally instead of all our manufacturers having to export or all our users then having to import.
Yeah. No, Dean, we heard so much about that S21 at the expo. It was literally everywhere.
And I mean, we saw some as well. And there was an imported sample, and then there was a local sample. And the imported sample was, I think it was 4 times or 3 times less THC than the imported counterpart.
Than the local.
So the local was like 22 or 23. And I think the imported one was only 7 or 8%. So, I mean, we're growing good weed here in South Africa, on a large scale as well. We might as well, the patients who are wanting to access it might as well have access to stuff that's higher in THC.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know, it irks me when it goes from here all the way out, and then, we're exporting and then we're importing and we're just adding on to, trade deficits and all of those things. So, yeah, if we can get it local for sure. And what else do you see coming up, Stefan, besides the getting the cannabis listed as a medical, medicinal plant? Or is it a medicinal?
Sure. Yeah, I'll answer 3 parts though. Let's start with the private use bill. I know it's not everybody is going to agree with it. Yet obviously, if I tell people if you 2 or more people, you can have up to 1 kilogram or more in your house, they're already like, but that's a decent amount. But it is difficult because what's a decent amount for me is not going to be a decent amount for you, because I smoke it in flour, you make butter out of it or dab. Therefore, you need way more flour to make your concentrations, etc. But I am hoping that, at least if we get an amended version, that we can at least table something before Parliament. It will really make my life easier in terms of arrests. If I can actually refer to something concrete instead of, having to refer now to proposed legislation and trying to incorporating that with a constitutional court judgment, always, trying to weigh the options and find the middle ground, what's best going to help your case. And instead, there could be clear guidelines and clear, allowances on what is allowed and what not. And in my opinion, it would take power away from the police in some sense, but I do believe also that is a good thing. A lot of them are out there abusing their powers now way too long, even after the constitutional court, because they deem it's not personal use. If they deem it's not personal use, there's nothing concrete that we can really have to lean on. So I'm really hoping that we can maybe make some progress and movement forward on the private purposes use bill, so that at least people will know where they stand on what is allowed and what is not allowed. Instead of then me coming to you then in the jail and you say, but Stefan, I've done nothing wrong. And I say, I know that, but we now have to try and explain that to a judge, where it could be as something as you've got there and it's a wrongful arrest suddenly, for him thinking that it's not possessed or personal use because the legislation was passed. So it would definitely limit the power of the police, but I do think that is a good thing. We can all just maybe have clarity, because it is 3 or 4, almost 4 years down the line, and we are really not that much further than we were.
I mean,
back in 2018.
It would have been one of both me and Dean's hopes for 2022, is because we still get asked every single day, how many plants can I grow? Where am I in my rights? And I'm like, look, we've tried to explain this to you, but it's because it's this weird vague thing. It's like you can kind of grow as many plants as you physically can, but you just got to be able to prove that it's not for sale, and they've got to, but like someone might be able to prove that it is for sale. So you're going to have this like who can prove who wrong the best. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
that's
mean, if I have to get one more query about Stefan, can I fly with my weed? Then I would also gonna have to just kind of barge away because I've got a copy paste answer for you by now. That's how many times I get a query. It's literally people are still so paranoid to fly with it, and if there's legislation out that's clear on the or quantities allowed, even for things like that, it would not only make my life easier because now I'm trying to convince them that if they get caught, I will be able, to get them out. But I can't guarantee that they're not going to get caught.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know which official is there by the sea or by the airport and what views he has and what knowledge he has of the law.
yeah.
All I know is you're not going to be convicted if you
Yes.
stay within the confines of, the recommendations that I make.
Yeah.
But again, that in no way does not guarantee a preventive arrest, which I think some clear legislation might just be able to keep people's minds at ease, as well as keep the authorities in charge. Like also some clarity on what is allowed and what is not allowed, regardless of their personal opinion.
Because I think we could also argue up the quantities up, like if let's say they said cool, you can have 10 plants. Not that we want anyone coming in and counting our plants and this and that, but at least we could then argue, okay, now we've at least got a baseline that's not vague and ambiguous. We can say, cool, this is what everyone is allowed to do, 100%.
Yeah.
No one's going to jail, no one's getting arrested. If you do get arrested, it's going to be a quick process because evidence, law,
Yeah.
and then judge has to just read the law, read the evidence, and then that's it. So yeah, no, I agree with that. And your second, so private purposes bill, you obviously want to see something go through or a better version.
Yeah, and hopefully just some more clarity on the arrest, because in terms of criminal charges, that's mostly it. It's people still exercising their constitutional rights to grow cannabis for their private use, and somehow they still end up in jail with their product confiscated. The equipment, let's not forget, it's a disaster to try and get your equipment back, and it's expensive. Grow lights are expensive, good genetics are expensive, and to 3 months down the line, a month away from harvest, to just lose everything from seed to stem to flower to grow light to growing pot to soil to nutrients, they take it all, and it's heartbreaking when you walk out of there. You realize you're going back, and it's just an empty shell where you used to have this beautiful, beautiful mother plant, or in flowers. So it is heartbreaking, and that's mostly what I wish would be better in 2022. Let's get some legislation passed to limit the power of the police.
Dave's also got like a sweat break from thinking about
you lose one of your genetics you've been working on for 5-6 years, or maybe not that long, but like there's nothing it's if you lose a genetic you've been working on, that could be so valuable. And also equipment is expensive, and a lot of people wanting to get into the space, that's a fear for them as well. A lot of people save for years or a year to be able to just get their system going, and then if it gets taken away, and I mean, for doing nothing wrong, it's a big downside.
If it gets taken away, cool, you're going to just start selling coke, or you're going to start selling meth or whatever, or tuck or whatever you can get quick and start again. And I mean, it's like it's not going to help anyone in the situations, like especially people. There are people doing it on a sustain, not that it's allowed, but it's not the best.
Yeah, just to the audience, as a legal firm, you are required to do a certain amount of pro bono hours. And my pro bono hours will naturally be dedicated to these possession and dealing charges of people you can clearly see are wrongly arrested. So do feel free to reach out regardless if you have the fees or not. We can always find ways around that. But the most thing I'm very passionate about is keeping people out of that experience, because I can protect you from the system, from the judge, and from a conviction, and from sentencing. I can protect you from that, but I can't protect you from the experience you're going to have once they arrest you, once they put you in jail. That is, unfortunately, my power only starts again once you're in front of the judge or at court.
In the courtroom,
I do have some degree of power. At the police station, I do come there and I sit with you and we get your papers ready. But for example, if you are charged with possession of cannabis, you can still qualify for what they call the police bail, so your mom and dad can come and bail you out. But if you have a substantial amount and they charge you for dealing, which is a different schedule offense and a higher schedule offense, now suddenly you can't just qualify for police bail. Only the detective of the precinct can grant you the bail. And therefore then it's maybe, so it also heavily depends on your charges. We did do a different video explaining it a bit more.
Yes.
I would recommend that people go watch that as well. But if you are ever in a situation where you see you are stuck in that cell and you do know that you did nothing wrong, please do as well.
And reach out maybe before and get a plan of action before it's it's like, hey Stefan, I'm in the cell right now. Like your one phone call. No, it's worth having it on speed dial. I think from our side we're also looking forward to I would like the bill lined up. I would like people to know that they can grow 10 plants and not be bothered by the police. I mean, I've had a grow of less than 10 plants and had 9 policemen walk through my home to come see this tiny little grow that's going on. And it's like, fine. And I did nothing wrong, but the stress of going through that, it's easy because you don't know exactly.
Exactly. It would be so easy if the police knocked on your door and said, listen, sorry, your neighbor phoned us and complained they keep smelling cannabis. And you're like, they must be smelling my 10 flowering plants.
That must be the super skunk haze.
There's this grow room and it's got 300-watt LED lights, and even the police are just like gobsmacked. And wow, good grow, well done. So we're coming for you, maybe a joke like that, and they're off because there's nothing they can do.
That's how it should be.
That is how it should be, and that is the dream.
And Dean, your visions for the 2022?
Oh, it's once again just to have some sort of legislation in place. We're dealing with a lot of unknown at the moment, and there's a lot of fear related, and a lot of people, most people want to do the right thing. Most people want to stick within what is right. And a lot of people have very valid reasons for wanting to cultivate. I get contacted every single day by people who wanting to cultivate because they have cancer and they're done buying and they don't know what to do. And I mean, someone who has cancer, they need a lot of medicine. So now they put themselves into sort of a risk place by having to cultivate a lot to create an oil, so I'd just like to see some sort of, I'd like to know that my advice that I'm giving is justified. I mean, we give as much advice as possible, and I try not to give too much advice because you must leave it up to, the individual. But, I'd like to see just a little bit more solidification in what we can and can't do so that we can start moving forwards and sort of driving towards more of an industry and sort of more of a home grow industry, because that's really where we're finding ourselves. That's really where my day-to-day work kind of sits, giving advice to people who want to grow for themselves.
Imagine they just like the club model gets a new, imagine they draft some bill around the club model and they're like, cool, it's, all speed ahead, because, we also obviously would love to supply the grow clubs with equipment and it's good for the market. I mean, it's a good model. We believe in it as well. There's loads.
If we're really optimistic, hopefully we can get some clarity around the grow club models in 2022. But as a lawyer, knowing how long legislation can take, I mean, if you look at the Dacha couples case, which started, I think, back in 2011, and only got finalized in 2018 by the Constitutional Court, you're always going to have the people that oppose and appeal. So it could even get become a very long process. But I'm hoping that we see less resistance, because the current environment, as I can say it, is, even though we do have this groundbreaking constitutional court judgment, it doesn't seem like everyone is the grapevine is playing their part to adhere to.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got a few rogue soldiers, even though their captain is giving them clear and direct orders. And
Feels like
that's
Brexit.
a very, very difficult thing for me as well, because I know cases can go 2 years, 3 years, 4 years easy.
Yeah.
And this one only started recently. I've seen some of the dockets which are not at liberty to disclose, but based on what I've seen, it's going to be a good argument. There's not necessarily all the rules were adhered to, in my opinion. So there's going to be a lot of argument back and forth, and I'm hoping that the court look past a specific case in front of them, and they can then, whether what they determine for the Hayes Club, specifically them individually, I don't really have an interest. I want them to look at the model as a whole and deliver a judgment separately on the model. To say, okay, for example, we see your argument. This is the model that would have been acceptable. If you were in terms of that model, great. If you weren't in terms of that model, obviously, then you could be fined or penalized to a certain degree, depending on how far off the legality of the court's opinion you sway. But again, I'm not going to be that optimistic to say I guarantee it's going to come out in 2022, because a lot can still happen, and a lot is definitely going to happen. But
whenever someone asks me, I'm like, "It's happening in 2022." Like I feel like there's going to be. It's been almost 3 years now, but like in 2018, and So I think now it's going to happen. Got a feeling.
I always say,
I do think 2022
2 to 5
is going to
years.
be a big year. Sorry, Dean, you were saying?
I said, whenever someone asks me, I say 2 to 5 years.
Could be like 2 to 20.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still keeping optimistic. I'm hoping for the 2, probably going to be 5.
Yeah. But I do think 2022 is going to be here for the medicinal space. I mean, if we can get that medicine registered, not only can all these facilities, start distributing locally, but also they've now been in the making since 2017, 2018, when this judgment first came out. So what still scares me a little is to see how little interaction there is just between the departments involved in that industry. If you're looking at a medicinal cannabis cultivation license, not only looking at SAPRA, which you actually do for your licensing, but you also need to register with the Department of Health. You also need to register as a pharmacy council. Because a big thing about these facilities, they say you need RPs, which is a responsible pharmacist. Yet now these facilities has got responsible pharmacists employed on site, but they're not listed as a pharmacist. They're number one. So now there's this whole argument, you've got pharmacists that is required by law to work at a company that isn't registered as a pharmacist. And, so from my discussions with SAPRA, it seems like they agree that there hasn't been a lot of interdepartmental communication. So, for example, when I mentioned the pharmacy council and how it could be that pharmacists now work at a space that isn't even a pharmacy, they came back and said, no, you need a pharmacy, but they don't think that the pharmacy council has yet put out their guidelines. So I'm hoping that at the end of the day, these three legs will intertwine and finally come together. And with so many applicants, years in the making, hopefully 4 years down the line, the people that have been in the process now have clear guidelines on what is required. The government's departments agree from each other what is required. And we can start not only, exporting great quality, as you mentioned, to try and get South Africa on the map as maybe one of the best quality growing
global exporter
countries out there, which it seems to already have. We've got such a huge illicit market, we've got such a great climate for the plant. The plant's doing all the work for us.
Yeah.
So we just have to get it into the hands of the people out there. So I'm hoping to see a bit more less resistance when it comes to that in that space.
100%. Well, Stefan, thank you so much for coming on. We will drop some links below the video for where to find you and how to get hold of you. But from our side, thank you as always, and thank you so much for sharing the info. And yeah, we share your optimism for 2022.
Thanks, Andrew, Dean, and as always, all the best for marijuana and stay in 2022. Anything you need, I'm always here.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Stefan.
Thanks, Stefan.
Yeah. All right, Andrew.
Yeah,
Cheers,
bye.
Dean.
Excellent stuff. It's always exciting chatting to Stefan. He's got so much technical knowledge, being in the space, and I really am excited to hear him putting out the offer for people to reach out from him. He's obviously
pro bono means free, guys.
Yeah, like I was saying, he's obviously running a firm and needs to make money, but at the same time, he put it out there that he is also, if you don't have any money or if you're in a sticky situation, he will be there to help. And I believe he could be there if he has the capacity. Don't all
but they have legal, they have to do certain free work. So it's like, and he'll do it towards cannabis arrests, expungements, it's part of their mandate. But why not? But guys, we can't always do grow content because as much as we are a grow store, this is fundamental to know where and why you're growing and how you're allowed to grow. So these chats with certain attorneys and lawyers and things like that, it is part of the ecosphere. So some people get a bit bored of the legal chats and this and that, but in all honesty, it's something that we all have to be prepared for. Until the legislation is pen on paper, it's vague. So it's it's crucial. But I think that sums it up. It's been a long one. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, you can also get it as a podcast. If you don't have time to watch the whole video, you can just listen to it on the drive, and make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell, and we'll check you guys next week. Peace, y'all.
Peace, guys.